What's going on, guys? Alex here with TFL Bike with some really exciting news because there's an all-new Kawasaki KLR 650 case. We've been waiting for this for, I don't know, 2-3 months now, and it's finally here. How stoked are you?
Absolutely. We're both stoked because the KLR is an absolute legend. This is a fantastic bike that started manufacturing in 1987, and the fact that it went on hiatus has definitely left some people a little upset, so we're excited that it's back.
Yeah, like Kay said, this bike came out in '87, and it's pretty much been unchanged since then. In 2008, there were a couple of modifications made to the bike, so they redesigned some of the bodywork, upgraded the front forks, new swing arm, new brakes, new cooling system, but since then, it's been pretty much the same. Kawasaki killed it off in 2018 to give themselves some time to prepare for this new one right here. And yeah, now it's back and it's better than ever. New tech, same insane reliability that we've come to know and love with the KLR, and it's now fuel injected, which is big news. This is a dual sport, a bike that we would love to take up into the mountains of Colorado. Elevation's gonna be a huge factor, so the fact that this is fuel injected, that's a headline in itself right there.
Yeah, it's really nice. And the other interesting aspect is that even though this engine is new to some degree and it's fuel injected, it's very similar to the engine that it replaced. It's even got the same 100 millimeter bore and 83 millimeter stroke. So it's mostly pretty much the same engine that we've grown to love over the years, seeing how unbelievably reliable it is. One of the bigger differences besides the fuel injection that I noticed is that the old motor from 1987 all the way to 2018 was 651 cc's. Now it's 652.
1 extra cubic centimeter somewhere in that engine. Not exactly sure where they're getting that. Maybe redesigned head, as you said earlier. But yeah. Pretty much the same engine besides it being fuel injected, which is awesome because this is such a proven engine. They did revise some of the different parts in the engine, like revised intake. The exhaust cam profiles have been kind of redesigned for improved mid-range torque. But overall, this is an engine that you KLR people are going to be very comfortable with. It's going to feel like you're right at home if you hop on one of these new bikes. And that's a good thing, I think. I think diehard KLR fans will appreciate that this is basically an unchanged motor.
Yeah, this is a motorcycle that's remained so similar through so many decades for a reason. They haven't changed it because there's not much that needs changing. It's a simple, durable, military-grade bike. Say basically it's the AK-47 of motorcycles, and they did actually make legitimately military-grade versions of the KLR. There was even a version of the KLR back in the day that could run on diesel fuel.
A diesel-powered KLR 650.
Yeah, imagine riding a diesel motorcycle.
That's a new one for me. I've never heard of that. That is pretty interesting. I'd love to actually see one of those in person. Let's move on to the design, though, and just talk about the general look of this bike, because it's very similar to the outgoing model. Some of the bodywork is a little more angular, a little sharper, a little more modern looking, but for the most part, this bike looks identical to the old one. Flat seat, huge gas tank, really large tank, large windscreen up front, hand guards, very upright riding position. Yeah, everything seems to be a slight evolution, not a complete redesign. They did do some cool things. For example, on the side shrouds, there's these impact zones. You can kind of see them right there. So they have some sort of crash or tip over protection built right into the bike. But for the most part, the design is pretty much identical. And you can even see that in the camo graphic that they have on the side of that, which they did a similar version of back in 2018.
Yeah, and you mentioned something important there, large fuel tank. 6.1 gallons, which is really nice if you want to do long distance off-road riding, which is one of this motorcycle's best features, one of the things that it is best at. That amount of fuel is going to take you a great distance.
Yeah, especially out of a 652cc single-cylinder thumper. A couple new additions to the engine as well, so new clutch release bearings, new generator output, increased generator output, so that's going to be for your grip heaters, fog lamps, and other accessories. This bike has an 80-watt capacity for powering accessories, which is much higher than the outgoing version, and part of that is thanks to the new LED headlight and taillight. LEDs use much less power than the traditional halogen bulbs, so that frees up more space to run accessories.
Something else that I really like is that the new KLR now has a sealed battery as well, which is great for off-roading, riding through the mud, anything like that. There's also a revised starter, ignition coil, and the evaporative emissions canister is lighter.
As far as tech goes, not a ton of it, even though this is a 2022. So like I was saying earlier, you do have LED lighting around the bike. But as far as the dash goes, it's still pretty old school. So backlit LCD, it does look somewhat modern. You know, they did shape it a little bit, but it's not a TFT display or anything like that. Still looks pretty old school. I don't know that that's a bad thing, though. It matches the bike pretty well.
No, it makes perfect sense because the KLR has always been a very affordable adventure bike option, and starting at $6,699 for the base, that is a really low price. We'll dig deeper into all of the pricing for the different models in just a moment, but to compare that to a motorcycle like the Suzuki V-Strom, the V-Strom starts at a base price of $8,799, and that's also a 650. That motorcycle competes with this KLR. So starting at, over $2,000 less, that's a good entry price. So even though you lose a little bit of technology compared to a lot of other modern motorcycles, I don't think people will mind.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I mean, like you said, you're keeping the price low. Never a bad thing to see that. Right above that LCD screen, you also have a accessory bar. So that's where you're going to be able to mount up your phone or a GPS. You can throw all your accessories up there and head off road and know exactly where you're at. Let's go into some of the performance components. So let's start with the brakes. The new KLR 650 has a revised front end braking system. The front disc is now 20 millimeters larger than the outgoing model, so 300 millimeters versus 280 millimeters in the outgoing model. The new KLR 650 does also have ABS, and I'm not quite sure if you can completely disengage the entire ABS system, but what we do know is that it was co-developed by Bosch and the intervention timing is set pretty late. So when you're off-road using the brakes, it's just going to feel more natural. It's not going to interfere with your braking at all, and also when you're out on the pavement, it's just going to feel like a less aggressive ABS system.
And for those old school riders that don't particularly want ABS, you can save $300 because getting a KLR with ABS is $6,999 rather than $6,699.
Suspension has been revised as well, so new 41 millimeter forks up front, and rear suspension has been modified as well. Adjustable rear suspension, you have preload and rebound damping adjusters in the rear, and overall this should be a more firm suspension than the outgoing model.
Before we move on to the pricing for each new version of the KLR, let's take a look at our sponsor for this episode, Rider Justice.
Hey everyone, this is Case from TFL Bike with our Ride Smarter Tip of the Month brought to you by Rider Justice. We hope you never get into an accident on your bike, but if you do yourself a favor and stay off social media until your claim is settled and you're back to full health. This is even more important if the accident wasn't your fault. Why? Well, you can be sure the insurance company will scour your social media feeds looking for any evidence they can use to lessen your settlement amount or worse, not pay you at all. One innocent post from you claiming, "I felt great and I took a walk today," could cost you thousands of dollars. To learn more about how to ride smarter with common sense tips anyone can follow, go to riderjustice.com, the champions of biker rights, on the road, in the courtroom, and now across the country.
Now, we don't have any information yet on when all of these new KLR models are going to be available, but we do have the rundown of all the pricing. So the standard KLR, which is available in Pearl Sand Khaki or Pearl Lava Orange, starts at $6,699. If you want to add ABS to that, that's going to be $6,999. So like I mentioned, an extra $300, not too bad. The KLR 650 Traveler, which comes with a top case, a DC power outlet, and a USB, that starts at $7,399, and the coloring on it is Pearl Lava Orange. The KLR 650 Adventure comes with saddlebags that are 21 liters and they're hard-sided. There's also some LED auxiliary lights, engine guards, a tank pad, as well as the same DC power and USB socket that you get on the Traveler model. That KLR starts at $7,999 and it's manufactured in Cypher Camo Gray. So even the top model, most expensive KLR is a pretty reasonable price in this segment. a lot lower than the majority of bikes it competes against.
That's a really reasonable price. Fully loaded with saddlebags and all the power you need to take you off-road. You know, if you go with the Traveler, you get the top case, which Kawasaki says will fit a full-size off-road helmet. Or you stay on the cheap side, $66.99 for a pearl sand khaki, which is by far my favorite color. Yeah, $66.99 for a KLR 650 with fuel injection and everything you need to take you off-road. That's just unbeatable. Kawasaki actually dropped 2 new motorcycles today, the KLR being the first one, but there's actually a new KLX 230RS, which is kind of similar to the existing KLX 230R, but slightly changed. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yep, so the S version of the KLX 230R is, like Alex mentioned, very similar to the KLX 230R that came out for 2020, but it's got a lower seat height by about 1 inch. So that puts the total seat height at 35.4 inches, and they achieved that through different suspension. Now, because there's different suspension on the S version of the KLX 230R, you only get 8.7 inches of travel in the front and 8.8 in the rear, which is 1.1 inches fewer than the KLX 230R. So that's basically just your sacrifice that you have to make. If you want a lower seat height, you're going to get less travel, but depending on your riding style and the length of your legs, obviously, it might be the right way to go.
Yeah, there you have it. If you want a KLX 230R in kind of the small package form, this is it for $43.99. So there you have it, guys, the all-new 2022 KLR 650. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and head on over to tflbike.com for all the latest and greatest in two-wheeled reviews and honest and independent reviews. Catch you in the next one.